Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar today. I'm Francis Seeley from GlobalNet 21 and Enfield Voices, and this is one of the many webinars we do that look at global, national, and local issues. And today we're going to look at a local issue, but it has global repercussions because it's about people in need, it's about what's happened in the COVID pandemic, and it's about how local people satisfy a need that we see globally. And we've got Clare Donovan with us today. And Clare, during the COVID crisis, wondered what she could do to help people. And she looked at the possibility of cooking for people in need and delivering meals for people in need. And she put a post on social networks. And to her surprise, she got people who, were interested in helping her. And within 24 hours, I think they had got together nearly 400 meals, which is quite amazing. So Clare, welcome today. And maybe you can tell us your story. But first, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So, hi, I'm Clare Donovan. I'm the founder and director of Cooking Champions, which is a food-focused social enterprise. My background is a little bit mixed. So I was trained as a secondary maths teacher. I taught for 14 years, and then kind of food is just a huge passion of mine. And then I went part-time, got into setting up my own catering business, and then Cooking Champions was born out of that catering business.
You said cooking is a passion of yours,
Yeah.
But you also believe it's a force for good, don't you? I mean, what makes you say that?
Just it brings people together. There's very few people that are not passionate about food, whether it's their likes, their dislikes. It brings back childhood memories. It's essential for good physical and mental health. It just has so many positive repercussions on every part of your life.
Okay, now in the introduction, I said how you got started, but I'm sure you can tell it a lot better than me. You started Cooking Champions as a result of what you got started. Tell us how you did get started. Tell us your story.
So Cooking Champions started about 3 or 4 years ago, just me running a few children's cooking lessons and then doing about 25 meals every other week for an Enfield-based homeless charity called The Little Things, because I was building up my commercial catering alongside that and teaching at the same time. So it was like juggling a few things. But then summer 2020 would have been the summer that I had bookings pretty much every weekend for my catering business. It was going to be like my big successful summer. And then within about a week, all my bookings had been cancelled, and I was very worried about how I was going to pay the bills, in all honesty. But then I thought, well, I can either mope around and feel sorry for myself, or I can put my catering skills to good use. That's when you picked up the story of just putting that message out. And then after that first 24 hours of having 400 meals, within 10 days, we were settled in Winchmore Hill Sports Club. They very, very kindly let us stay there for a couple of months. And we were making over 1,000 meals a week with a huge team of volunteers. We had cooks, delivery drivers, people helping with admin, received huge amounts of donations from the public and places like the Felix Project, which is a food distribution charity. And we kept that going to such a high level until the end of August, because we were feeding people, and especially children, throughout the summer holidays. And we're still cooking, we're still providing 45 families a week with weekly food drop-offs. And recently we hit the quite amazing target of 40,000 home cooked meals, which when we started at 400, I just never thought that we'd get to this point. And it's kind of, as we've gone on, it's not a quick fix solution. It's like, what can we do to address the underlying issues of food poverty, which for me is just poverty. It's just one aspect of how we can help people in our local community.
I mean, 40,000 meals, that's a lot of meals. And you told us how you got people together to do that. How did you get those people together? Where did they come from?
So annoying people, just asking please, begging them. To be fair, it was such a positive response for the community. And we're not talking just the odd shift here and there. The core kitchen team, which I'd say when we were at our busiest, was about 12 to 15 people. They were there at least once a week, with most people doing 2 or 3, 6, 7, 8 hour shifts. So it was a huge commitment. So it would never have happened without that core group.
So when you talk about the core group and the people you have involved,
Yeah.
Are they volunteers or are they staff? Because you are a social enterprise, aren't you? And social enterprises are about social value, which you do very well, but they're also about earning a living.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have paid staff as well as volunteers? And what's the sort of distribution between that?
So I have just left my teaching job. So I'm working now full time. I say full time, that sometimes means 7 days a week, but I love it. So it's me. We have Jenny, who is a Palmer's Green resident, who is our food support manager, who works 4 days a week. And then we have Heather, who's more of a freelance, helping with big events and just the massive to-do list that we have at Cooking Champions. So we have 3 paid members of staff. And then a couple of months ago, before the summer, I set up a job agency. So everyone who works for Cooking Champions gets paid at least the London living wage, most of the time more. And it was for students just going off to university, helping with bigger events, so waitressing, helping in the kitchen as well. So on a weekly basis, we have 3 members of staff. For events, we bring people in.
And in order to make that work, you set up a CIC, haven't you, a community interest company. Why did you choose that particular model?
I think one of the ways we had to access funding was to have a governance that fitted sort of the criteria for funding. The 3 main ones were being a registered charity, a CIO, and a CIC. And because we had no idea what Cooking Champions was going to become at the time, the CIC model was the easiest to sort of get registered, go through the process. But we are very quickly changing to a different model because it's not working for us. And we had a nice little tax bill, which is ridiculous because all our money goes back in to our projects, and now we have to pay a substantial tax bill, which is
So I know what you went through. You went through what lots of organizations do. They start with an idea, they want to do something, they suddenly want a bank account, they realize they've got to have a constitution, a business plan, etc. And that focuses their minds in a way that they never thought they would have to at the beginning. You went through that, did you?
Yeah.
So was that a painful process?
Not really. It's just admin. It's just tedious, but like you said, it has to be done. I mean, tedious in terms of the bank account and things like that. In terms of governance, it's really important. So we have 3 directors. We go through all the general structures you'd expect from a CIC. So that is important. But yeah, waiting on a phone for 45 minutes to speak to someone about a form or something is not what you want to be doing, really.
No, I think I sort of have sympathy with you on that. You're now based at St. Peter's, aren't you? The church there, and you have a pop-up cafe. Tell us about that, what you do there and how the pop-up cafe works.
I think we just go back a little bit because we're coming up to our 1-year anniversary of being in St. Peter's Church. So this is our 3rd venue that we've been based at since our COVID response. We had 48 hours notice to get out of the last one. And we were really stuck for about 2 weeks. We operated out of a storage unit, which was crazy. And then just St. Peter's come to the rescue. The church, the congregation, they just welcomed us with open arms. And for lockdown, we had the whole building to really boost our effort, which was amazing. And it's because we've got this security now, we're here for the long run, we can do things like the community cafe. So The community cafe is every Friday. We had a little break over the summer holidays to give our volunteers a break and just sort of breathe and take take stock of everything that's happened. So we are relaunching on the 24th of September, 10:30 to 2:30, and we now have indoor seating as well. So rain or shine, we will be running every single Friday. That is run by volunteers. It's just such a positive, lovely atmosphere. We pride ourselves on homemade food, good quality service, and it's a time for local residents to get together, and it really tackles issues like social isolation. So as residents get to know us, they get to know the other customers. So someone will turn up on their own and end up staying for a couple of hours just on a table chatting with other people, and it's just lovely.
Well, you talked about the fact that you make 40,000 meals that you have, and that's amazing. You told us about how you get volunteers and you've got some staff. The other side of the equation are those who need the meals, those in need. How do you find those? What's your method of reaching out to people in need?
Sure. So when we first started, we were completely new to this game. And I know that there are so many dedicated organisations across Enfield who do fantastic work, who we just looked up to, really. So people that stand out are Kerry from North Enfield Food Bank. She helped us in terms of having the right referral process. Emma Rigby from Love Your Doorstep was able to connect us with lots of people. And then it's just working with other bodies, the Age UK, sometimes the council would refer people. And then we have the option of people self-referring as well. So there is a mixture, but everyone that receives our help goes through a referral process. Not that I think we might have had, well, we don't turn anyone away. It's just so we've got a few bits of information just so we can offer the best support possible to them.
So when you find these people,
Yeah.
I mean, do they come to you or do you deliver to them?
We deliver, and that in itself is another challenge, because we are so reliant on volunteers. We'd be lost without them, and then sometimes it's just quite difficult to fill those spaces. But the reason why we deliver is that lots and lots of people that we help just can't access food banks. So we have an elderly gentleman on the 14th floor of a tower block who hasn't left his flat since the beginning of COVID. We're helping a single mum who's got 6 kids and would have to catch 2 buses with 6 kids to go to a food bank. It's just not practical. So we help as much as we can just to make their lives that little bit easier for them.
But you also said, interestingly, that when people come to the Popping Cafe, you've got a sense of community. Mm-hmm. So you're about community, not just Meals on Wheels, aren't you? You're about helping people. And you mentioned isolation, for example. If you find somebody is suffering from isolation and it's affecting their mental health, can you help them further than just giving them, a meal for the day?
Absolutely. And I think this is why our volunteers are so amazing, is that they don't just drop the food off and go. They'll have a chat. Sometimes there'll be things like, my washing machine is broke, can you help me? And our volunteers, like I keep saying, go above and beyond. They'll source a washing machine and get it delivered. Or unfortunately, there's been some sad occasions when people have passed away. So we help with offering support for the funerals. There's just all getting the prescriptions. There's lots of different examples I could give you of how our volunteers help in other ways rather than just food. And for a lot of people, it might be the one time a week where they get to speak to someone face to face. And then sometimes we'll have people that don't answer the door. So that raises a concern. So then we'll follow that up. And it just means that they've got someone else looking out for them. So yeah, it's really important.
You talked about satisfying those needs, and you also said on your website that as a teacher, you thought you had a general understanding of different people's needs. But when you started this, it was a sort of eye-opener. You discovered needs that you hadn't even considered. What did you discover?
It's quite tricky. It's just to give you, without obviously going into too much detail, it's just people getting very upset when they're talking about not being able to feed their children. So they're missing meals, or they'll go whole days without food so they can feed their children. People going through cancer treatment who just haven't got the resources to eat in a healthy way. So that's why we make meals as well as just giving food to people, is that they might be exhausted. Elderly people might not be able to cook for themselves. So it's just ensuring they just have a nutritionally balanced, healthy meal waiting for them.
Okay, so you're beginning to expand what you do now, aren't you? And you're looking at developing some exciting events in the future. And one is in Broomfield Park in Palmer's Green this summer. Tell us what you'll be doing there.
This is very exciting. So we are organising Palmer's Green first ever food festival. And I know there's a very well established Palmer's Green Festival, which I've been to many times myself, but this one is solely focused on food. Cooking Champions are running it. We have a few key aims that we wanted to achieve with this event. So one, we wanted to make it free for the community to enter. We wanted to support and raise a profile of some amazing local food businesses, many of which have helped us during making meals, giving us ingredients, and also to raise awareness of what we do, what our partner charity, The Little Things, do, and what Enfield Food Alliance does as well. So there's lots and lots going on. We've got food stalls, demonstrations, competitions, lots of activities for the children, live music. It's just going to be a lovely, lovely event. And It's not going to rain.
No, it won't rain. I'm sure it won't rain. But you're doing this, aren't you, as well as part of Enfield's big Green Festival? You've come into that network of events, which we've got almost 100 events coming up, which is quite frantic, really. How important is it that you feel you're part of a total event highlighting sustainability and climate change?
I'm going to be totally honest. I'm not as informed as I need to be. It is a priority of Cooking Champions to be more aware and do more. So we're taking baby steps. And I'm just so open to learning from what's going on around us, that this festival is huge and I want to listen to other people. But in terms of what we're doing, it's things like no single-use plastic is allowed by any traders on site. We're giving demonstrations about how to use food waste. So things like, when you use a cabbage, can you use the leaves rather than just putting them in the food waste? Can you do something with that? And then it's just trying to emphasize how using local suppliers, growing your own vegetables, which we'll be covering in the food festival, all these things, if everyone just does their bit together, it'll make an impact.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because I see that you designed in your project right from the start a zero food waste policy, and you talked about plastics and so on. Did that happen incidentally, or did you go into the project saying we want to be sustainable in that way?
Our biggest food supplier is the Felix Project. So for those of you who are unaware of their work, they're a fantastic London-based charity, and they're a food redistribution charity. So they'll have food from Tesco's, Waitrose, big suppliers. So anything that the supermarkets can't sell, or there's extra or surplus produce, we use that food. So instead of going to landfill, we're using it for people, which is absolutely fantastic. And we've worked out, since the COVID response, we have had nearly 9.5 tons of food from the Felix Project, which would have gone into landfill. So that's quite staggering, I think.
Yeah, that is staggering. We actually have a group of young people in Incap. We call it Incap Youth, and they're going to do a project, a session at Southgate College, where they're going to try and involve students in looking at how we can eliminate food waste. Is that something you think you could help them with?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just think just really basic things is having correct storage. So the number of like food that goes in there, this is like statistic that 20% of food that people buy ends up in the bin. So just having reusable containers, storing it at the right temperature, you know, making meals out of little bits that you've got in the fridge, all of these things can be really easy to adapt into your everyday lifestyle.
Okay, well, I'll let them know that. And in the future, you've got some more plans, haven't you? I mean, you're not standing still, sort of sitting on your laurels. You've got tremendous imagination and you're thinking of where you can go from now. And one of those is working with local schools, isn't it? Running food education workshops. How far have you got on that? Is that something that you're developing, or have you got it going at the moment?
Very much in the development stage. I thought I'd have time over the summer, but that didn't happen. We've paired up with a local primary school and we've had an initial meeting. So it's just up to me now to go away and plan the resources, and sort of where we see this going is trialing it with a few schools before launching it on a wider scale. But our aim is to speak to every year 5 student in Enfield Borough. And that would be amazing if this was continued. So then, you know, you have a whole generation of people receiving the same positive messages about what they can do in terms of healthy eating, which then has a knock-on effect for things like food waste, which then affects climate change. So yeah.
At this point, Claire sort of crashed out because she had some drilling in the room she was in and she had to change room. Well, she did that. She went into the church, but she also changed her clothes, or at least her top. So you'll see a different Claire with a different top, but believe me, she's the same person. So back into the interview now. You're obviously doing some really, really ambitious things, and, you know, maybe you're going to take over the world sometime, but certainly the cooking will. But one of the things you're doing, which is really interesting, is you want to set up a training academy to widen employment opportunities, don't you? Now, that is ambitious. Tell us how you plan to do that.
You're right, it's ambitious, but we believe it's much needed. So after speaking to many of our recipients, they want to earn money. They don't want people to hand them food. Although they're really grateful, they would much rather earn their own money and choose what they want to buy for themselves. And one of the big gaps in the job industry at the moment is the catering and hospitality world. So we've got a huge gap. We've got people that need jobs, and we've got us who work in that industry. So it seemed like a no-brainer to connect the dots and make it happen. So we are launching on the 1st of November. We are recruiting 10 people at a time, and they're going to have a 5-week intensive training course. They'll receive lessons in the kitchen, so basic food preparation, front of house. They'll have expert sessions from local businesses. They'll receive 2 accredited qualifications from the course as well. And we've networked with lots of businesses who are able to offer employment after they've graduated from this course. And also, which we think is going to be a really key factor, is that we're going to provide mentoring after they've graduated. So it might be that they're having a really bad day, they're late, they're stressed, but they just don't know how to communicate that with their employer. So they can ring us and we can be the middle person to kind of talk them through, rather than just not turning up or being in a high state of anxiety. We can have a chat, we can ring the employer saying this is happening, and just be more aware and be more accommodating for people, which will help people stay in their jobs longer.
Well, that's great, and I hope you succeed in all that, because that's an amazing ambition you've got. I mean, apart from those things, and those are big enough, I mean, tell us, do you have any other ideas about your future, and what would you like to see yourself be in 5 years' time?
We would like to expand outside of Enfield, across North London, if not the whole of London. But we've got a lot of work to do here first. So I just don't believe in expanding beyond Enfield before we have everything running at a really high standard. And as we've talked about, we've got the cafe, we've got the primary school education program, we've got the academy. That's enough. Oh, and we do lots of events as well. So we cater for weddings, corporate events. So we've got all that as well. I think that's enough. But ideally, I would love to have our own restaurant. So it's almost going full circle that the people that we're helping, they go through the academy, they then become paid staff with us, and then they become mentors for the next lot of people going through the academy.
Well, that is a great idea. I mean, to have a series of restaurants that actually, help people in need, as well as, serve people who come into the restaurant. And, that is a fantastic idea if you can develop it. I think a lot of people will be interested in what you're doing and what your ambitions are. So if people wanted to contact you, to help you, to find out more about what you're doing, where would they go to do that?
So we have our website, which is cookingchampions.uk. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or just from the 25th. If you're free on a Friday, pop down, have a cup of tea, have a chat with us. We've got some great cake. Ali makes some fantastic carrot cake, and we've got Jack's famous sausage rolls, all handmade and delicious. Or come to the food festival, and just anyone with a red t-shirt or jumper, there'll be lots of us. We're a friendly bunch, so just come and say hi.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, thanks for doing this, Claire, because, what began as a very small but big in terms of concept idea has clearly expanded into something that has involved lots of people who want to help out, who want to make a difference, has helped a lot of people as well, and has inspired you to think at how you can develop that in a way that, will help more people and involve other people who want to make a difference as well. So I think it's a really great project, and I think everyone will wish you all the success in achieving what your ambitions are. So thanks for joining us and telling us about what is an incredibly exciting and innovative project. So thank you, Claire. And we'll end this interview now.